Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Travis back with another episode of the Rep by Rep Strength podcast. So, just got done watching one of my favorite movies, Moneyball. And, it dawned on me while I was watching this, there are so many metaphors in that movie for not only life, but, for me is training that I see. So jotted down a few notes and just thought I'd share those about those metaphors and how I see training. So main character, obviously Billy Bean, and the gist of it is this guy's a washed up MLB player who's now in the Oakland A's front office. So they get deep in the playoffs with, a payroll of like $39 million going up against the Yankees. So they make it pretty deep. But all their players get picked up, at the end of the year. So they've got to start from scratch. And, Billy goes down to meet with his scouts. And all the scouts are looking at, okay, we need to look at replacing these players. Right? That's all we have to do is just replace these players. So Billy and his scouts don't even see eye to eye on defining the problem. So that's, metaphor number one. If you have a group of people who are trying to accomplish a goal, it really freaking helps if you have everybody on the same page attacking the same problem. So obviously there's a little bit of friction there between them until they get clear on what the problem is and what they're trying to accomplish. So from there, Billy flies to Cleveland, and he sees he keeps trying to make some trades, make some deals, and he sees this guy out of the corner of his eye who works for the Indians, and he keeps shaking his head, keeps whispering something over to, another front office guy saying, no, we can't trade this dude. And Billy recognizes, all right, this guy, there's something different about this dude, the way he's looking at the game. So it ends up, Billy actually trades some picks or buys this front office guy from the Cleveland Indians. So now he's got his sidekick, his right-hand man. So he's asking him, why did you say that these guys couldn't be traded? Well, it turns out that Billy's sidekick was went to Yale and was like a math guy, right? So he's not necessarily concerned about sports in the traditional way. He's looking at just the numbers. So this is kind of where I can see an analogy or a metaphor, if you will, with training. Is you've got the science people through and through that have never been in a weight room before, have never tried to accomplish any kind of physical goal, right? But then you've got, on the other side, the people who have all experience, in this case, Billy Bean, but no scientific or mathematical knowledge of the game. So the rest of the story is all about how do these two work together, and how does Billy integrate the numbers into the traditional baseball setting. And at times, it is literally a matter of will, where Billy is trying to take this square peg of science and mash it in a round hole, which is the traditional viewpoint of baseball. So it is through sheer will that he gets this done. And, he fires some people along the way, gets them cut out. So he gets the people who are not in alignment with him out of the way. So there are a few things, more than a few, but there are a few things that, Billy didn't calculate or didn't take into account. Number one, he didn't let his manager know, the guy who's coaching the baseball team, he wasn't clear enough with him about what it was specifically he was trying to accomplish. And frankly, Billy was just stepping out of his lane. So eventually, these guys, Billy realizes he's in the wrong, and they have a discussion and can move forward with the season. So his communication skills improve as the season moves along. And kind of the turning point for the season was after Billy communicated with his manager about what it is specifically he's trying to accomplish and how he's trying to accomplish it. It shows this mashup scene where he's talking to all the players and going player by player by player, talking about, hey, here's your skill set, and this is part of a big process. So again, coming back to training, this is delayed gratification. You need to understand your skill set, where you're at, what you can do, how long it's going to take. And it is a big, long process. It is not something that we are going to get immediate feedback from or immediate results the way we want them. But if you stay the course, we're going to have better results in the long run. And then the streak happens. So the streak is where the A's go on this amazing run. They end up winning 20 games in a row. Something that hadn't been done in like 75 years or 80 years or something crazy. And along the way, there's all these media personalities who are critical throughout the whole movie of everything that Billy does. They're critical of everything, even when he's winning. They're talking about, well, this streak can't be explained. This could never happen again. This is just random, blah, 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 blah. Very negative all the time. And what I think of here and how it relates to training is if you actually start putting in the work and working towards a goal, you're going to have these energy suckers along the way, these energy vampires that are constantly negative, constantly just trying to drain you, and they'll discourage you or try to and say, that won't work, this goes against the norm or whatever. And, then when the result that you've been working towards finally does happen, everybody thinks it's a quote-unquote overnight success or it's completely random, and it's not. What it is working with people who understand the science and people who have actually put in the work physically. So now you're working with people who are practitioners. So you start plugging in the numbers. You start communicating with people about what it is specifically you're trying to accomplish. And then staying the course is the hard part. Staying the course and trusting the process, trusting the people you're around, and knowing that they're leading you in the right direction. And then, before you know it, you have some amazing results. But oftentimes a lot of people don't see those results and don't see how good the results can be because they're impatient. Whereas if they just gave it more time, put in more effort, and fully committed, fully invested, they would reach those goals. So, there's times throughout the movie where, Billy gets really up and he gets really down. And, it completely, you can just see that it drains him. And I would say one part about training is learning to, quote, surf the waves, because you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. But as long as you continue to put the time in, the effort, the frequency, if you can learn to understand that that stuff is going to happen, it's part of the process, and you can stick it out over the long run, that is eventually going to add up. It's literally like investing in an annuity. Basically you put in so many dollars. You put in X number of dollars over, X number of X number of days or years or whatever, and you can eventually live off the interest. And then, you've accumulated that mass that you can live off of, right? But a lot of people just get too discouraged. They don't put in the time enough, and they just haven't invested enough yet. So finally, at the end of the movie, Billy gets flown out to Boston. They make him a crazy offer for like $12.5 million or something. And they saw what he did with the A's, and they're like, hey, we want to bring you out here and have you be our GM. And it's interesting because at this part, I was reminded of a quote about truth. And the quote says something along the lines about all truth goes through 3 stages. First, it's ridiculed. Then it'll be analyzed. Finally, it'll be accepted. And a lot of times, people can't tolerate number 1. They can't tolerate any kind of ridicule. They can't ride it out. They can't trust their process and staying the course and knowing that what they're doing is right. And that was one of the things that I admire about the character. He's a real life person, but of Billy Beane, is that no matter how much criticism was getting thrown at him, non-stop, he stayed the course. Now there was one instance in the movie where, he wanted to say, screw it, I'm going to trade everybody, go back to the old way of doing things, and his sidekick ends up talking him out of it. But anyway, that's why it's important to have a good team of people around you to understand what it is you're trying to accomplish, so that you don't give into those feelings when they come up. Because if you have the motivation, if you have the discipline built in, that is going to override the motivation, because the motivation is not always going to be there. If you have the right disciplines in place, the right people around you, and you trust the process, good things will happen. So I just really enjoyed that movie and looking at it, a little differently this time. So, just my 2 cents, but I hope some of that was helpful to you, and just the way you start looking at training, regardless of, if you're just training for health or fat loss or strength or power, whatever. All of those little tidbits there can be applied. So anyway, if you want to hear more of my thoughts about training, please hop on my email list, and you can just do that at travisbarrett.com/newsletter. Have a good night.